Tonight, suspected cultists invade venue of a funeral in Awka North local government area of Anambra State, kill 20 people. Tempo of political activities set to rise as the Independent National Electoral Commission announces adjustments to the 2023 general elections dates. The federal government urges Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine, lists 4 borders where stranded Nigerian citizens can go for evacuation. And curfew imposed on Ukrainian capital Kyiv amid tension over another night of attacks by Russian troops.
On business news tonight, the Central Bank of Nigeria is set to pay 65 naira for every $1 repatriated and sold at the investors and exporters window.
On sports news tonight, Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich hands stewardship and care of the European champions to the club's charitable foundation following Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
We begin tonight with a rather disturbing story coming out of Anambra State, where 20 people are reported to have been killed by suspected members of a cult group. The armed men were said to have stormed Ebenebe in Awka North local government area of the state and went straight to the venue of a burial ceremony of a suspected leader of a cult group named Ozo. On arrival during his lying-in state in his compound, the attackers sacked the mourners, shooting sporadically. Video clips from the scene show several persons lying in a pool of blood while Ozo's corpse was desecrated. The Anambra State Police Command confirmed the incident as a case of cult rivalry, adding that the Commissioner of Police in the state, Mr. Echeng, has dispatched tactical squads comprising various units of combat and intelligence officers to the area. And now to electoral matters. Call it the first fruit of the newly signed Electoral Act 2022, and you may not be wrong. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, earlier today adjusted the dates for the 2023 general elections a day after President Muhammadu Buhari signed the electoral bill into law. And according to the National Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, the presidential and National Assembly elections will now hold on Saturday, February the 25th, 2023, while governorship and state houses of assembly elections will hold 2 weeks later on Saturday, March the 11th. Professor Yakubu made this announcement at a press conference in Abuja, where he explained that the adjustment in dates to allow for conformity with the provisions of the electoral law, which stipulates the notice of elections should be published at least 360 days to the elections.
A day after the President signed the 2022 Electoral Act, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, convened a meeting of the management team of the electoral umpire. After the closed-door meeting, Professor Yakubu leads national commissioners to brief the media on the outcome of their meeting. INEC had earlier fixed February 18, 2023 for the presidential and National Assembly elections, while governorship and State House of Assembly elections were scheduled for March 4, 2023. However, the signing of the Electoral Act means there's an adjustment in the election date.
The Commission has decided to adjust the dates for the 2023 general election to ensure compliance with the provisions of the new law. Accordingly, the Presidential and National Assembly elections will now hold on Saturday, 25th February 2023, while the governorship and state houses of assembly elections will hold 2 weeks later on Saturday, 11th March 2023. With this adjustment, the 2023 general election is now 363 days away.
Besides setting the date for the 2023 general elections, the electoral umpire also sets critical timelines for political party activities, which the Commission insists must be complied with.
Conduct of party primaries, including the resolution of disputes arising from them, Monday, 4th April 2022 to Friday, 3rd June 2022. 3. Submission of nomination forms to INEC via the INEC portal for Presidential and National Assembly election, 9 a.m. on Friday, 10th June 2022 to 6 p.m. on Friday, 17th June 2022. 4. Submission of nomination forms via INEC online portal for governorship and state assembly elections, 9 a.m. on Friday, 1st July 2022 to 6 p.m. on Friday, 15th July 2022. These guidelines or timelines are supported by regulations and guidelines which are anchored on the provisions of the Electoral Act. So we expect all political parties to comply. Any political party that fails to comply with the timelines provided for in the timetable and schedule of activities, particularly with respect to the conduct of party primaries and the nomination of candidates, will not be expected to nominate candidates to the Commission for Elections.
The coast is now clear and the ground rules for the 2023 general elections are set. All eyes are now fixed on the political parties and electoral umpire to see how these provisions will be implemented.
With the enactment of the Electoral Act 2022, elections in Nigeria are expected to take a new shape. Well, the new act, among other things, is expected to enhance the transmission of results, ensure adequate funding for INEC, and ensure inclusion of persons with disability. In this next report, our correspondent Emperor Simon gives us a breakdown of key provisions in the new Electoral Act.
A new dawn for Nigeria's electoral system as President Muhammadu Buhari pens down his signature on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill exactly 25 days after it was retransmitted to him by the National Assembly. Many Nigerians have longed for this day, including members of the civil society organizations who had staged protests in the nation's capital to demand for the president's assent.
The president is not aware that if he doesn't sign today, by tomorrow we don't have complete dates for election.
Top among the provisions of the act are early release of funds to INEC, inclusion of persons with disability, legalizing electronic accreditation of voters, redefined overvoting, substitution of candidate in the event of death in an election, power to review election results declared under duress, early conduct of party primaries and submission of list of candidates, early commencement of campaign, political neutrality of INEC personnel upon appointment and penalty for contravention, as well as electronic transmission of results. Under the new law, the electoral umpire INEC is expected to get all funding required for the conduct of election not later than a year before the date for the election, as stated in Section 3, subsection 3. People living with disability have a reason to smile, as Section 54, subsection 2 of the new Electoral Act requires INEC to take reasonable steps to ensure that persons with disabilities, special needs and vulnerable persons are assisted at a polling place. The Act also addresses the problem of overvoting, as the total number of accredited voters will now be a determining factor in the validity of votes in an election, thereby reducing any manipulation of electoral outcomes by politicians as provided by Section 51. Nigerians will be hoping that these provisions of the 2022 Electoral Act as amended will change the existing narrative about the country's electoral system. Whether this will happen is just a matter of time. But what is certain is that the 2023 general elections will serve as a litmus test for the application of the law. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, another improvement the new law is expected to bring to elections is the reduction of incidents of harm to electoral officials, as was the case during today's by-election in Ngorkbala State constituency of Imo State, where some of INEC's ad hoc staff were abducted, according to INEC's resident electoral commissioner in the state, Francis Ezonu. The by-election in Imo State is one of the polls INEC conducted in 4 states of the Federation today to fill vacant seats in state assemblies and the House of Representatives. The other states are Plateau, Ondo, and Cross River. According to Mr. Ezonu, who briefed journalists at INEC's headquarters in Owerri, the Imo State capital, the Commission received reports of violence, snatching of INEC materials, disruption of polls, and attack on INEC personnel in some polling units. He appeals to security operatives to ensure quick and safe return of the abducted INEC personnel.
We received reports of violence and disruption of polls in some polling units and attack on our personnel. So far, no casualty has been reported, and the security has been up and doing in rescuing some of our staff who were trapped within the crisis areas. We remain grateful to them and pray that they sustain the tempo till the end of the day. We have noticed with great worries the abduction of by some unknown persons of some of our ad hoc staff together with our election materials towards the end of polls. While the trend earlier in the day was violence, disruption and destruction or cutting away of INEC voting materials, towards the end of polls, it changed to abduction of our personnel with our beavers, ballot papers, and result sheets. We have received SOS from some of our ad hoc staff who were abducted, blindfolded, and taken to unknown destinations where they are compelled to thumbprint the ballot papers. Our situation room has similarly received several complaints alluding to the same from the general public. We wish to reassure the general public that the results manufactured from unknown places will not be collated. The number of votes cast must tally with the number of accredited voters as shown by the beavers for such results to be authenticated.
And ahead of the 2023 polls, politicians have continued to make moves in their quest to clinch their party's ticket. Now, one of those eyeing the presidency in 2023, former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku, has visited his former boss, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, in Abuja, the Ogun State capital, where they met behind closed doors. Answering questions from reporters shortly after the closed-door meeting with the former President Obasanjo, Alhaji Abubakar expressed confidence that he will get his party's ticket.
When are you declaring, sir? The world is waiting for your declaration. When are you declaring?
We will let you know now. We will give a formal announcement.
Are you confident that you are going to get a ticket for your party?
Have I ever failed to get the ticket?
Yes. No, this time around, I want to know, maybe you are so confident.
I'm confident. I'm confident.
Sir, they are talking about age. That you are, the elderly people should allow youth to take over. What do you say to that?
Let the youth compete now. It's competition. It's democracy.
The former vice president also visited the Alake and paramount ruler of Egbaland and the traditional council at the Ake Palace in the Ogun State capital. Meanwhile, the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Abaribe, is also throwing his hat in the ring, albeit a different ring entirely, as he declares interest in joining the Abia governorship race in the 2023 election. He made his intention known during a visit to the People's Democratic Party Secretariat in the state to consult with the party leadership. According to him, it is only a candidate of his stature that can win the seat.
I have come to let the people of Abia State, through our party, to know that I am here to consult with the party executive and every member here that I intend to run for the governor of Abia State. Mr. Chairman, I am going to be not just a governor for Abia people, irrespective of where the person comes from.
In part two, after the break, federal government lists 4 borders where stranded Nigerian citizens in Ukraine can go for evacuation, urges Russia to withdraw its troops from the country. That's in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Suspected cultists invade venue of a funeral in Awka North local government area of Anambra State. Killed 20 people. Tempo of political activities set to rise as the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC announces adjustments to the 2023 general election dates. Federal government urges Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine, lists 4 borders where stranded Nigerian citizens can go for evacuation. And curfew imposed on Ukrainian capital Kyiv amid tension over another night of attacks by Russian troops. The federal government has met with envoys of the G7 countries in Nigeria, expressing worries over the Russian-Ukraine conflict with a call for peace to resolve the conflict. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema, met with the envoys in Abuja, saying that the Nigerian government called for peace and the use of diplomacy in resolving all differences. Mr. Onyema says Nigeria wants Russia to pull its troops from Ukraine.
We made it clear that Nigeria does not condone this aggression and urged the Russians to pull back and stop the intervention. We have diplomatic relations with Ukraine. Ukraine is a member, sovereign country member of the United Nations, as is Russia, of course. And we urge peace and diplomacy to be prioritized by the 2 sides. And we're very sad that the diplomatic process that was ongoing before this attack was not continued and was cut short. So we support every effort being made to stop the aggression and for Russian troops to return to Russia. We recognize the sovereignty of Ukraine and the territorial integrity of Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the federal government has listed 4 borders in Ukraine where Nigerian citizens seeking to leave the country can be evacuated. Speaking to Channels Television in Abuja, the chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa, explains that representatives of the Nigerian mission in Poland and the Nigerians in Diaspora Organization Poland are waiting to receive any Nigerian that makes it to any of the 4 borders.
There are 8 borders, but we're recommended 4. So when you get to these 4 borders, you're going to meet Nigerian officials there from the embassy, from the Nigerian Diaspora Organization, and there are phone numbers to call. There are mails to also send messages to, and then there's a form to also fill, even before you get there, so that they know what you want. If you get to Poland and you want to return, they know what to do. If you get to Poland and you want to stay there for a while, they know what to do. So the Nigerian embassy in Poland, as well as the Nigerian diaspora community, have actually been on the ground to try to help stranded Nigerians there. Initially, there were bottlenecks, but not anymore. And then the idea, again, is better you go by train, but it's a long waiting hour. Some wait for as long as 20 hours, 19 hours. So those trains take you directly to these borders, particularly these 4 that the Nigerian mission is recommending. And then, like I said, go in groups. Make sure your documentation is with you, have your passport with you, and the most important thing is that there are numbers to call, there are people to help out, there are buses to convey you and cars to convey you when you do arrive, and there's a place of convergence. So all the details are out there, it's on our website, it's with you, and the federal government is doing everything to ensure that our students in particular are protected.
Earlier, the Nigerian embassy in Poland announced in a statement that embassy staff volunteers will be at the Polish-Ukrainian borders with buses and vans to pick up Nigerians from the crossing border points. It says affected Nigerians should present the following address: 02953 Kosiasi 22B 02956 Ozawa as a destination address with the border control team. Well, back home, as a way to end the menace of air pollution in Rivers State, a group of environmental campaigners is urging federal and state authorities to facilitate the process of issuing licenses to artisans involved in the operation of illegal refineries. The campaigners made the call during a road walk in Port Harcourt, the state capital, to increase the awareness about soot pollution in the state. They believe that licensing the operators will enable the government to regulate their activities and also create employment for young people.
The colors of their shirts may be different, but their message is the same: protect the earth. They are members of the Nigerian Environmental Society and other social and fitness groups who are adopting a fitness approach to walk against soot pollution in Rivers State. The campaigners walk nearly 1.5 kilometers from Stadium Road to GRA Phase 2 in Port Harcourt Metropolis, the state capital, to support the state government's efforts in the fight against operation of illegal refineries.
Rivers indigenes are predominantly farmers and fishermen, but these activities of illegal oil bunkering has affected lives, not only the health implication to we the humans and residents of the environment, but also to the aquatic life. So we've come to join hands to lend our voice to that of the Rivers State government and encourage them to be more proactive in this fight, because the importance of this fight cannot be overemphasized.
So as long as we keep breathing the suit, we will keep this campaign ongoing, because it's our lives and the lives of our children that is at stake here. So there's no need to say we are going to stop here. From here, we'll go to the social media and all other media. We must campaign and make sure that these people begin to carry on, begin to catch up. And when it catches up, other people will carry it on. At the end of the day, we'll live a better life and leave the earth a better place for our children.
For the fight to be successfully won, the campaigners are asking appropriate authorities to license the artisans to operate legally in an environmental-friendly manner.
We need the participation of every stakeholder in Rivers State to fight against this suit because of the implications. We may not actually feel it today, but in the nearest future, our children will suffer from the menace of this suit.
They're trying to eradicate the illegal refineries, but sometimes, you need to empower these young ones. You can see their talents, and why don't you now legalize it and get a better place for them, and grow the society.
The campaigners are also urging other professionals and organizations to adopt other suitable approaches to sustain the campaign for safe environment.
Fuel queues have returned to filling stations in Abuja after some days of respite, and this is in spite of assurances from relevant government agencies and the availability of the product. The queues resurfaced across the city as some motorists accused the petrol stations of hoarding the products. Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited is restating its claim of adequate stock of fuel.
Long queues of vehicles waiting for fuel at petrol stations. These queues are resurfacing a week after the situation improved. Some motorists have been on the queue since the early hours of the day as they accuse the stations of hoarding the product.
I came early this morning, about 6:04. So I've been here since 4 minutes past 6 o'clock this morning. The time is 10:41, so that's over 4 hours.
I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't know why we are having this. It has been on since last week, and I don't know why it's still on up till now, that we cannot overcome this. As a nation, we shouldn't be experiencing this. I don't know why it's happening at this hour and at this time.
Black markets traders are having a field day as commuters continue to wait under the scorching sun to get the product. Some motorists seek the government's intervention.
I can't explain. I don't even know why the queue is like this. So whatever or whoever is in charge to make sure that this food is available, we have the resources in our country. We shouldn't be suffering in the midst of plenty.
People are suffering. The fuel pump price was not increased and there's queue. So the thing is really biting us, and the government should know what they do about it.
Top officials of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited are on an oversight visit to some fuel stations in the city centre. Again, they reassure residents of the availability of the product.
We are ensuring that the supply chain is smooth. We have also gotten the cooperation and working with all the various stakeholders in the industry, MOMAN, DAPMAN, IPMAN, NATO, PTD, NUPENG, in fact all Nigerians as well, to ensure that the products are coming out from the mother vessel to daughter vessel, get to the depots, and from the depots they are also trucked out.
This is not the first time the NNPC Limited will be given these assurances. However, residents of the nation's capital are hoping to see an end to the situation in the shortest possible time.
So security, the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi, believes efforts of the federal government towards building strong armed forces are yielding positive results, just as he restated that protecting the territorial integrity of the country against both internal and external aggression remains top priority. The minister was speaking at the passing out parade of cadets of the Nigerian Army Short Service Course 47 at the Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna State.
As you graduate today, you'll be joining the corps of gallant Nigerian Army officers. You'll be required to lead soldiers in various theaters of operation across the country, where you'll be expected to utilize the skills you have acquired during the course of your training here. There will be challenges ahead, and your career path will not be the same, but the road to success and excellence will always depend on your fundamental ethics of hard work, discipline, and commitment to higher standards.
Also speaking at the event, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, explains that a timely review and adjustment of order of battle for the Nigerian Army has become imperative.
The operationalization of the 7th Nigerian Defense Academy Demonstration Battalion will add great value to training activities of the Nigerian Defense Academy through the conduct of mock drills designed to enable the cadets visualize specific tactics, techniques, and procedures. This will ultimately contribute to improving the cadets' skills while ensuring realistic training consistent with global military practice. Additionally, the establishment of this battalion will enhance the security of Afaka general areas, as well as Kaduna State in general, since the unit is under operational command of 1 Division Nigerian Army. It is my desire to enable this battalion achieve its dual mandate of supporting the training of cadets and provision of security to Kaduna State. I have authorized the issue of vehicles, equipment, arms and ammunition, and other enablers in a phased approach and consistent with unit table of equipment.
Meanwhile, Canada's Acting High Commissioner to Nigeria, Kevin Tucker, has emphasized the need for Nigerian and Canadian navies to continue to oil their relationship in order to keep the Gulf of Guinea safe and secure. Mr. Tucker, who led the commanders of 2 naval ships on a courtesy visit to the Flag Officer Commanding Western Naval Command, Rear Admiral Yakubu Wambai in Lagos, acknowledged the long-standing ties between both countries.
Canada has a thriving Nigerian community. There are many members of the Canadian Armed Forces are of Nigerian descent. Canada and Nigeria also have a strong bilateral trading partnership. So all that to say that there are a lot of linkages between our 2 countries, and those linkages continue to grow, as demonstrated by this visit this week. Now I think it's also appropriate and timely to briefly remark, given the very deeply disturbing events in Ukraine over the last couple of days, to underline the importance of peace-loving nations like Canada and Nigeria to work more closely together in terms of security cooperation, so that we can work together to achieve shared goals. And I think the visit today is a perfect example of that, where I think we would love to do this more often. Unfortunately, COVID, I think, really threw us off for a couple of years, as it did everyone around the world. But these visits are really a great opportunity to speak to each other, to learn from one another, and to strengthen those bonds so that we can work together to address shared challenges.
Responding, Rear Admiral Wambai says the visit, which coincides with the 60th anniversary of the bilateral relationship between Nigeria and Canada, is expected to impact plans towards one of its major operations, Exercise Obangame.
For Bangame Express, which is one of the main reasons why you are here, we are going to participate together. Obangame definitely is an avenue where partner nations try to enhance maritime security. The Gulf of Guinea, yes, has been bedeviled, but of course in the last 12 months, we have seen that there has been a drastic reduction in maritime crimes also within the Gulf of Guinea. This was achievable or could be attributed to the existing partnership between us, Gulf of Guinea coastal states, and partners like you that come in, exercise, and patrol our waters. So that is a very welcome development, and we really appreciate that. Let me state that your experience and strategic location at the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean and northward to the Arctic Ocean will be of immense benefit to us as we continue to provide an opportunity for all participating navies to synergize and learn from each other's experiences.
Elsewhere, a joint team of police and military operatives has rescued 7 victims of kidnapping in a coordinated bush clearance in Zamfara State. The victims are natives of Chibada village in Rijal local government area of Niger State. They were saved by tactical operatives of the State Police Command in collaboration with military deployed along the Dansadel forest area as part of a continuous operation aimed at rescuing victims from various bandits' enclaves in the state. According to the victims, bandits stormed their village on Monday, February the 21st and abducted 7 of them. All the victims have been debriefed and will be handed over to the Commissioner of Police, Niger State Command, for further action. The Edo State government says Thursday's attack on several banks and a police station in Uromi, Esa Northeast local government area, which left several persons dead, was an act of organized crime. This is according to the Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu, who led a delegation including heads of security agencies in the state to assess the situation. The delegation visited the affected banks and the police station, as well as the hospitals where those wounded during the robbery are being treated.
Very unfortunate incident. We are here on behalf of the government and the governor to assess and check what actually happened and to check the extent of damage that it caused. So we are just here on that fact-finding mission, just to check. And we have seen the level of destruction and damage, and it's very unfortunate. I will appeal to all our people living around this place to be calm, and the government is here now to check what has happened, and I'm here with all the major security chiefs, and the purpose is to also beef up security and to assure our people that they should just go about their normal business, and that the security situation has been, the beefing up has been upgraded to make sure that their lives and their businesses are safe. So it's just to check and also to reassure our people that we are doing everything possible to not only guarantee their safety around here, but also we are going to assess what we have seen, and in the coming weeks, government action they will see. But nonetheless, we are sure that looking at the whole thing we have seen now, it's an organized, very organized crime.
To agriculture development, the Adamawa state government is set to upgrade cattle markets in the state to boost economic growth. The secretary to the state government, Ahmed Bashir, says the agribusiness initiative will also help boost the state's revenue. Mr. Bashir was speaking at a sensitization program for traditional leaders and other participants in Yola, the state capital, on the proper implementation of the Adamawa Agribusiness Support Program.
Adamawa is one of the states in northern Nigeria with the highest concentration of cattle and other agricultural produce. But over the years, the state has not been able to fully harness its potential in these areas. The state government is now taking a bold step to further explore how to expand the sector through its newly established agribusiness initiative. State officials, traditional rulers and other concerned bodies gather at the government house in Yola to discuss the implementation process.
If you are in your trade, for example, and you are used to buying or selling 100 bags or 10 cows or what have you, so long you are profiled, you will be given a credit guarantee whereby your finances can provide you additional money equivalent to this credit guarantee that you are being given. So if you are doing 100 bags, you might end up doing 200 bags.
We need to get the buy-in of the people who have the cows, who have the cattle, who have the markets, and we need to sensitize all of them, and they have a role to play. And in doing that, there must also be sanctions for failure to go along with government in government's effort to bring goodness to the people. I think these elements are important. They should have been featured in the analysis.
5 key crops will form the nucleus of the agribusiness. They include maize, soybeans, rice and livestock, among others. Secretary to the Adamawa state government says the initiative has the capacity to broaden the revenue base of the state.
Our intention is to broaden the revenue base, ensure complete collection of the revenues, and channel them to the right direction into capital projects.
About 25 billion naira has been disbursed for the first stage of the cattle market upgrade, which has already commenced in Ganye and Mubi cattle market and will be replicated across the state. Traditional rulers and local government officials have been asked to work with the government to make the initiative sustainable.
For business stories on the news at 10, here's Layo Adegoke.
Thank Thank you, Kayode, and welcome to Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says exporters will now enjoy a rebate of 65 naira for every dollar of non-oil export proceeds sold at third parties at the importers and exporters window. In a statement containing the guidelines, the CBN says the rebate scheme is specifically designed to incentivize and encourage repatriation and sale of export proceeds into the FX market. The rebate is part of the benefits under the CBN's RT200 FX program, aimed at attracting $200 billion in foreign exchange earning from non-oil export proceeds over the next 3 to 5 years. Trading activity at the FMDQ exchange turned positive this week as the total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot, forwards and futures markets rose by 38.82% to $668.33 million as at February the 25th. A further analysis of trading results shows that total value of transactions at the FX spot markets, that's the INE window, increased by 23.65% to $498.44 million, while the FX derivatives market turnover rose by over 116% to $169.89 million. At the same time, the Naira firmed by 0.12% to 415 Naira 82 kobo against the dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange window of the Forex market, in contrast to the 416 Naira 31 kobo recorded last week. The International Monetary Fund has announced a $2.2 billion support for Ukraine following the invasion of the country by Russia. Now, this was made known in a statement by the Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva. According to Mrs. Georgieva, the consequence of the Russia-Ukraine conflict poses significant economic risks in the region and in other parts of the world. She therefore assures that the fund is ready to support its members as needed in coordination with international partners. Back home at the equities market, positive sentiments returned this week as investors took advantage of the moderation in share prices last week to make re-entries into companies with attractive dividend yields. The NGX all-share index rose by 0.4% to close the week. Notably, investors' interest in Seplat Energy, GT Co, International Breweries and MTN Nigeria drove the weekly gain. However, activity levels were weaker as trading volumes and value declined by 3.2% and 37% each. Performance across sectors was broadly positive as the oil and gas, insurance and banking indexes posted gains, while the consumer and industrial goods indexes closed negative. RT Briscoe topped the gainers chart for the week, while Ella Lakes PLC led the decliners. The trio of Transnational Corporation of Nigeria, United Capital PLC and Zenith Bank contributed 29.48% and 27.78% to the total equity turnover volume and value for the week. And that's it on Business News. It's back to you, Kayode.
Thanks a lot, Laya. Well, it's time for some sports news. Here's Chris Elims.
Welcome to Sports News. Roman Abramovich has handed stewardship and care of Chelsea to the club's charitable foundation following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There have been calls from the British parliamentarians this week that Russian-born Abramovich should not be allowed to own Chelsea, owing to his alleged links to Vladimir Putin's regime. The decision comes a day before Chelsea play Liverpool in the English League Cup final. The Chelsea FC Foundation trustees include John Delvin, Paul Ramos, Pierre Powell, Emma Hales, Hugh Robertson and Bruce Bach. The International Olympics Committee has ordered international federations to move any event scheduled to take place in Russia or Belarus out of the country in its strongest condemnation of the attack on Ukraine. Following a meeting of the executive board, the IOC has also resolved that no Russian or Belarusian national flags should be displayed at any sporting event. Russia's flag and anthems are already banned from major events such as the Olympics, Paralympics as part of sanctions imposed over the cover-up of a state-sponsored doping program. This could be extended to all other events, and the IOC has called for Belarus flag and anthem to be banned as well. Poland will refuse to play their forthcoming 2022 FIFA World Cup playoffs with Russia in March following the country's invasion of Ukraine. The winners of the game, which was due to be played on March the 25th, would face Sweden or Czech Republic 4 days later for a place in the finals in Qatar in November. The Polish Football Association have also offered to host all Ukraine home matches, while Ukraine are unable to play in their own country. An electronic board on the front of the Atletico Madrid Stadium has displayed a giant stop war message to condemn the military assault in Ukraine. The Wanda Metropolitano Stadium has one of the most advanced lighting setups in Spain, and it is used before every Champions League match to put on a show. The Spanish La Liga champions followed Bayern Munich's Allianz Arena in the initiative of showing Ukraine's colors. In the Nigeria Professional Football League, Isha Kayode has scored his 10th goal of the campaign as Rivers United stayed top of the table after a hard-fought 2-1 win over Nasarawa United at the Adokia Mercy Market Stadium in Port Harcourt. Murphy Chukwu scored in the 57th minute as Heartland defeated Enyimba in an Oriental Derby in Owerri and put pressure on Enyimba coach Finidi George. Andy Okpe took his goal tally to 5 as Raymond Stars snapped 3-match losing streak with a 2-0 victory over Katsina United in Ikenne. Abia Warriors edged past Shooting Stars 2-1 in Okigwe, while Dakada dispatched Lobi Stars 2-1 in Uyo. And that's it on sports. Back to you, Kai.
Thanks a lot, Chris. On the third day of the war in Ukraine, Russian forces have continued their onslaught, with fighting moving to the streets of the capital, Kyiv. A citywide curfew has come into effect and will last until Monday as the city braces for a fresh Russian assault. The mayor says anyone seen in the streets will be considered a Russian saboteur. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has pledged not to surrender and continue fighting to defend his country despite Western powers offering his evacuation. Well, here's a look at key events of Day 3 of Russia's assault on Ukraine.
This is the moment a missile hit a residential block in the Ukrainian capital Kyiv as Russian forces attempt to break through the city's defenses. The military says an army unit managed to repel Russian forces near its base on a major city street in several attacks overnight. The nighttime curfew in the city has been extended. With explosions echoing around Kyiv on the third day of Russia's assault, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a video message, vowed his country would never give in to the Kremlin. The Ukrainian president has also reportedly turned down an offer from the United States of evacuation from the capital city Kyiv, saying, "I need ammunition, not a ride." The Ukrainian health minister says nearly 200 people have been killed so far, including civilians, and more than 1,000 people have been injured. While the metro system is now serving only as an air raid shelter, hundreds of thousands of people have fled westwards. 100,000 refugees have crossed into Poland alone. Ukraine has prevented all men aged between 18 to 60 from leaving the country so they can fight.
Russia, go home! Russia, go home!
Meanwhile, protesters across the world, many visibly emotional, continue to come out in large numbers to show solidarity with Ukrainians.
All my family in Ukraine, my parents are sitting in shelters, and I just cannot be silent. It's aggression. It's you know, if you learn the history, it's we are living it not the last 8 years, not these 3 days. We are living it last 3 centuries, and we just want to stop it. We don't want war. We are defending ourselves. We are not attacking anyone. We are just defending our houses, our families.
I think we need to do more. I think all Western countries, all the democratic world, they need to do more, because it's not just the Ukrainian war against Russia. It's war to defend democracy and freedom for the rest of the world.
Putin is terrorist! Putin is terrorist!
Hundreds of anti-war protesters also took to the streets in Russia to denounce their country's military invasion of Ukraine. Several people were detained by the police. In an unsurprising development, Russia has vetoed a draft UN Security Council resolution that would have condemned Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. 11 members voted in favor of the resolution. India, China, and the UAE abstained.
The resolution has not been adopted only because of the single veto of the permanent member of this council who is perpetrating that conflict. Russia claims that its invasion of Ukraine is in self-defense. This is absurd. Russia's only act of self-defense is the vote they have cast against this resolution today. Make no mistake, Russia is isolated. It has no support for the invasion of Ukraine. History will record how we voted today and which countries stood up to be counted in defence of the Charter and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine.
Russia's latest attack on our most fundamental principles is so bold, so brazen, that it threatens our international system as we know it. We have a solemn obligation to not look away. We believe to our core that the noble intentions of this institution should still have a place in solving 21st century problems and shielding our children and our grandchildren from the horrors of war. The horrors of war are exactly what our Ukrainian brothers and sisters are experiencing today.
Meanwhile, the UK says it and 25 other nations will send more weapons and aid to Ukraine. And in one of the first visible displays of the West enforcing sanctions on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine, France has seized a cargo ship in the English Channel that the US says was linked to the son of a former Russian spy chief. For now, the Ukrainian capital is braced for another night of Russian assault after forces failed to break through on the third day of Moscow's invasion.
And the main news again. Suspected cultists today invaded the venue of a funeral in Awka North local government area of Anambra State, where they reportedly killed 20 people. And that's the news at 10 for tonight. On behalf of all of us here, thank you for watching and good night.